But let's get started. I'm Dr. Jillian Goddard. I'm an endocrinologist, and I am the author of the Savvy Patient Substack. And today, I am delighted to have with me Jill Consor Beck. Jill, why don't you introduce yourself to the people who have joined us?
Well, hello everyone. It's great to be here, Jillian. Thank you for having me. My name is Jill Consor Beck, and I am an accountability coach. Now, I came from into accountability coaching through 30 years of corporate in investment banking and in tech. And I left kind of what we were talking about just now, like because of the misogyny. I just had enough. And I felt that women deserve better. I didn't realize how much I was in the throes of perimenopause at that point and how much, say, the last 5 years of my career were significantly impacted by that. And people
Mm-hmm.
didn't talk about that. And so I wanted to figure out a way that I could take my years of lived experience in high stress jobs and going through my own health transformation and how I could help other women so that they didn't make the mistakes that I made, and just leave out the gimmicks and the BS because there's so much of it out there. And it's one of the reasons why I was so attracted to following you, because, you just dispel a lot of myths and you tell people what really they can focus on versus whatever wellness guru BS is out there. So
Well,
thanks again.
thank you. I take that as a huge compliment because that is very much what the Savvy Patient is about. So thank you. Um, I think that the conversation that we're having today is really sort of at the intersection of a lot of different topics that are emerging in sort of the perimenopause and menopause conversation. So, one of the things you already alluded to is how perimenopause and menopause symptoms impact women in the workplace. And I think that our conversation will be particularly germane to that. There is somewhat limited but growing research on what symptoms are really impacting women in the workplace and how those symptoms are impacting the choices that women are making, including choices not to take on promotions or even to retire early or leave the workplace altogether. So we'll definitely get into some discussion about that. But also this idea of how perimenopause and menopause affects women with neurodivergence, in particular women with ADHD. This is a conversation that is in the very, very early stages. Um, One of the limitations of this conversation is that we we don't actually know all that much about how estrogen affects the brain to begin with. In all women, neurodivergent, neurotypical, or otherwise, and then to understand sort of the specific brain chemistry of women who may be neurodivergent. But what we think we know is that estrogen potentiates dopamine, and dopamine is key in directing attention, um and where we focus our brain. And we think that dopamine signaling is very important in people with ADHD, and why people with ADHD struggle to direct their attention. um and and in fact, this is also why, or probably one of the reasons why, women in perimenopause in general feel that their focus and concentration decrease in the perimenopausal years, and that is a big factor women identify as being why they find that some of their struggles are more evident in the workplace. And so I think, even though we're going to talk about this in the context of ADHD and in neurodivergence, I think there's going to be a lot here that's going to apply to everyone, because everyone's estrogen levels are falling in perimenopause, and everyone is everyone's dopamine is not working as well. And so everyone to some degree will experience differences in their ability to focus their attention. Um, so why don't you talk a little bit um, about your how your techniques for accountability and coaching, and how I was fascinated by this because I think that they are particularly useful for women in midlife, women with ADHD, and even women without. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
I mean, there's so much there to unpack, right?
Yeah.
I think that, and like, I have so many stories, like the time I had to go and do this presentation under all these Klieg lights, and I had a white button down shirt on and a
Oh,
jacket on, and I just got hit. And then the lights and everything when you're presenting at
yeah.
these big tech conferences.
Yeah.
And I was, like, totally sweating, and, like, the guy next to me who was, like, this great guy, he's like, "Why don't you just take your jacket off and just wear, like, the blouse? I'm sure the blouse is great." I'm like, "No." 'Cause I was just, like, literally just, like,
Yeah.
totally sweating. So, I mean, I think that one of the things that I do to your point, there's a lot we don't know, and I'm not a doctor, and I certainly don't play one on TV, but where I try and focus on with people is, what do we know about their schedules? What do
Hmm.
we know about their commitments? And what do we know that's immovable versus movable? And that's where we kinda meet people where they are. And once I kinda have a sense of that, then it's a lot easier to kinda figure out, where do we identify pockets of time that you may not thought were possible. And it's really around, like, understanding, okay, if, for example, someone's going to your office for an appointment, and, they're trying to remember all the things that they wanna tell you, and I'm trying to remind them that, you can have such a well-intentioned doctor like yourself, but you have, like, 10 or 15 minutes maybe per patient. And so
Yeah.
it's getting people to understand, for example, either put something in your notes app, put it in your calendar app where you have appointment with Dr. Goddard in there, and
Yeah.
just start listing your questions in there, so that this way, this is something where it's like you don't have to remember it all. If you put it in my chart or whatever equivalent that
Yep.
your doctor uses, but most
Yep.
people use my chart,
Yep.
and you're putting it in there, when you get checked in for your appointment, chances are there's going to be some medical assistant or physician's assistant that's going to be going through, taking your blood pressure and all the things, and saying, like, "Oh, this is in my chart. Do you wanna discuss this?" And that could flag that for you.
Yeah.
And what that does is that it takes some of the pressure off of you remembering your whole litany of things
Hmm.
that you have to discuss with your doctor.
Yeah.
The other thing I think is interesting is, obviously, I think a lot of my clients are on GLP-1s and ADHD medication. Like, it's that Venn diagram of that happening, and then throwing on top of the perimenopause aspect of
Yeah. Yeah.
it. And what I talk to people about is, what got you here is not what's gonna get you through this next phase. And
Yeah.
that is a very hard conversation, and I'm very candid with people that this is different than me saying, like, you have to go to the gym 3 times a week and you have to do, like, push-ups and all of these things. This is a different conversation.
Yeah.
This is getting you to rethink how you're going to be running your life, because the
Yeah.
thing is that your brain is telling you it doesn't like how you're running your life now. It's not making judgments, like, I wanna be clear about that,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
saying, like, "This isn't working for me for processing."
Right. It's not functioning the way your brain is processing and functioning information is changing. And
Yes.
so the things that worked well for you in the past around, organization and executive function may not that that may change significantly during this time.
Yeah, I mean, like, multitasking. How many
Yeah.
times, like, raise your hand if you said at one point, "I'm an amazing multitasker." Hi. And I got a hard lesson on this about 11 years ago, because my husband had to have, like, emergency brain surgery, and he's fine, but
Yes,
a
good.
very illustrative experience in terms of understanding that multitasking is a bunch of bullshit. right? For
Yeah.
lack of a better way of
Yeah.
putting it. And so it's getting people to understand that when you multitask, and there was a study done by Microsoft on this, it takes you 23 minutes on average to refocus on the original task you were working on. So when I explain this to people in my life, whether they're people personally or professionally, I'm like, do you have 23 minutes to give?
Right.
Like, think about how much that adds up over
Yeah.
the course of your day every time you're letting your focus drift. Now,
Yeah.
it's hard, especially if you are neurodivergent, to not let your focus drift. And
Sure.
so
That's at the core crux of your
right,
neurodivergence ultimately, right?
right,
If we're talking about ADHD specifically.
totally. And so the thing is that the first thing is that I try and do is I try and get people to be aware of that there is a cost, right?
Yeah. Yep.
There's a cost. And like your time is money. Like maybe you're not a consultant where you don't bill by the hour, you're not an attorney where you bill in 10-minute increments, but time is money, right?
Yeah.
And your time as a perimenopausal woman is very valuable. You have
It
all of the
is.
you have all
Yeah.
the gravitas, you have
Yeah.
all of the savvy of life. There's a term I've come
Right.
up with called savitas, which is kind of this play on gravitas and savvy, but you
Yeah.
have all this. So your time is super duper valuable. And
Yeah.
so what I'm doing is trying to get people to understand that there is that cost that and you're giving up your value every time that you're letting yourself get distracted.
Yeah. Do you have techniques that people have found particularly helpful for maintaining that focus, for avoiding distraction?
Yeah. So every Sunday, so I coach by text.
Which is one
And
of the things that I think is amazing. Can you tell us, and we'll circle back to this other point, but tell us a little bit more about
yeah,
how the coaching by text is set up and how exactly that works and why that is the modality that you, because I think that's super pertinent here.
yeah.
Um,
Because what happens is that let's say you're going to therapy, right? And I'm very
mhm.
pro therapy, just so I'm definitely not
Me
knocking
too. I
therapy.
think it's a great thing. I think
No,
almost
that's a great
everybody could
thing.
benefit from therapy.
Absolutely. So, but you go to therapy and like your therapist gives you homework. And like an hour after you're like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to go do the homework," or you're working with an executive coach and you're like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to go do the homework." And then guess what? Life gets in the way.
Right,
Well, guess what? When you're getting a text every day, when you tell me like, so Jillian, you're telling me like, "Hey, I went to my therapist and I need to work on reading
right.
this book and blah
Yeah.
blah blah." Okay. So then you tell me like, "Hey, I just got out of my therapist and you don't have to tell me what happened in your therapy appointment. That's not
No,
what I'm looking for."
no. Yeah,
But it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
here's
Understood.
my here's my homework. Right?
Yeah,
And so you'll be getting texts from me over the next few days, along with a couple other things being like, "Hey, have you read the book? Have you thought about this point?"
mhm,
Like your therapist said to think about 3 things, right? And
right,
again, I don't have to know what they are, but it's
right.
like it's really prompting you to say like, "All right, you met with your therapist last Wednesday. Have you given any thought to this?" Because truthfully, if you're not doing the homework from therapy, and that means
You might
physical
as well take
therapy.
that large check you're sending them and flush it down the garbage, although I guess we don't
Exactly.
write checks anymore, but you
Right,
get the idea.
exactly. The metaphorical check, although anyone who's in perimenopause is old enough to remember writing checks.
That's right.
Um, but you're setting it on fire. And so the thing is that you deserve better. And so these daily nudges, they have
Mhm.
to be very practical because they're on text. You're not getting a
Yep,
dissertation.
yep,
And they have to be empathetic. And so the
yeah,
thing is that I've had to make these changes. So like 25 years ago, I was working on Wall Street. I was living a very unhealthy life. I'd been diagnosed with my first autoimmune disease, like
yeah,
all the things. And I had to like one day I hit a rock bottom where it was a metaphorical rock bottom where I'm like, shit, I deserve better. Right.
yeah,
And what I
yeah,
try and tell my clients and anybody in my life is that you do deserve better. And we just need to figure out what is gonna click in your brain to get you to put some kind of basic system in place. So to
Yeah.
go back to your other question.
Yes. Let's circle back to
Yeah.
sort of what things are helpful for people, particularly women in midlife and maybe who also have some ADHD. What techniques have you found that are really helpful for women, um, as far as things that help them maintain their focus and avoid that task switching that's so costly?
I think you have to group your tasks, right? So
Mhm,
the thing is that I have this one client who we called them baseball tasks. She's a huge baseball fan.
mhm,
And she kept procrastinating all of these tasks, and they were pretty low level tasks. Like they weren't tasks that
mhm,
required a ton of mental power here, but they're
mhm.
important tasks like bill paying,
Yep,
like making like little decisions here and there.
yep.
But she told me she liked watching baseball. And baseball, if anybody watches baseball, you don't need to be like 100% focused
No.
on it. There's a lot of dead time. And I'm a Yankees fan, so I mean, like, I love
Me
baseball.
too, but
All right, yeah. But you don't need to like have like this like intent focus.
Mhm,
And I said, why don't we come up with a group of tasks that come up and we call them baseball tasks,
yeah,
right? And I'm like, these are the tasks that you just chip away when you're watching baseball 3 to 4 nights a week,
yep,
right? And you just chip away at them. And they're low pressure tasks where you can be like, oh,
yep,
I could pay this bill. Boom, boom,
yep,
boom. Half an inning goes by, whatever
yep,
that is. But it's finding what everybody's baseball tasks are. The
yeah.
other thing that I spend a lot of time trying to understand with people are table setters.
Oh,
And
mhm,
table setters are things, it could be that in your office right now, in your workspace, maybe you can't function if you don't have a clean desk. Maybe you
that
can't
would be
function.
dead on, by the way.
Oh, dang. Um,
Go figure.
well, you know, all right, I'll take the win. It's early here. It's only 9:15 here. But it could be that I don't have lunch made for myself, or I
Mhm,
whatever that is. I don't have my gym bag out the night before if I'm trying to go to the gym at 6 AM. And so what I try and do is find out what are your 2 to 3 table setters
mhm,
that
mhm,
you need to be successful, right?
yep,
That help clear your brain. Because if you're sitting there at your desk right now and you see like this pile and it is distracting you from focusing,
mhm.
right? That's a pretty big cost. And
It
so we
is.
need to find out what your table setters are, and they're different for everybody. And
Absolutely.
the other thing I want to stress about the table setters is that there's no dumb table setters.
Yeah,
If if it is precluding you
yeah, if
from
it's taking
getting
up
more,
space in your brain, yeah.
yeah. So I want to make sure that when I'm talking about table setters and you're thinking like, oh, this is a dumb thing, which women tend to do about everything, like, oh, this is dumb, no one's gonna care, right? It's not. Because if it's
Yeah,
precluding you from performing, then
it's not dumb, yeah.
it matters.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I just want to take a moment to the number of people have logged on since we've gotten started. So I just wanted to take a moment again to reintroduce myself and my guest. I'm Dr. Jillian Goddard. I am an endocrinologist and the author of the Savvy Patient Substack. I didn't realize that was going to be such a tongue twister when I named it. And I am here with Jill Consor Beck, an accountability coach, and we are talking about how to maintain our focus. I think it's really interesting when you talk about baseball tasks because that is very akin to um, it's very akin to applied behavior analysis. So my sister is a CABA, I think is the she's a certified behavior analyst.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to and so she works with people with autism spectrum disorder. But one of the things that's really interesting about behavioral analysis is that it works on everyone. And in fact, if you read the acknowledgments in my book that's coming out later this year, you will see that which most people don't, by the way, and I know that I acknowledged her in part because she taught me that I could ABA myself, essentially, which is you give yourself a reward at the end of doing a task. When I do this, then I can have XYZ. And that is kind of similar in this idea that there are tasks that you do during something that you not only do regularly, but also enjoy. And so you all of a sudden you're connecting tasks that maybe are not so fun or desirable with tasks with something that you like. And so I think that's a really great technique.
I think that, there's so much, we talked about, you touched upon you used the term earlier, clutter. And there's a
Mhm.
lot of brain clutter out there. And so I had this one woman, it was like she found me through a friend and we had like a consultation.
Yeah.
And literally this is how the call went. And I said, so tell me what's going on. She's like, well, my kid's a senior, so we're focused on college. Um, I have to figure out what my youngest is going to be doing for high school. I need
Yeah.
to go to the doctor. I need to figure out if I'm leaving my husband. I need to get the house painted. And like literally she just like dropped that in there. Just
Like it was just another task
just
to
another
like
thing, like
tick
I need
off
to go
the
food shop
list.
like, literally I need to go food shopping, right?
Yeah.
And I just was and I'm just standing there and I'm like and she's going still and I'm like, "Wait, can we just stop for a second?"
Yeah.
And I said, "So, did you say in there that you're trying to think about if you need to leave your husband? Like, was that in there? Did I mishear that?"
Yeah.
And she's like, "No, no." And I said, "Well, maybe what we need to do is eliminate a lot of the mental clutter
So
in
that you
your
can figure
head
out, yeah.
so that you could figure out, like, what could we delegate or deputize, including that college search thing, right?
Yes.
What
Mhm.
could we do there so that you can get the space you need to make what I would argue is a very big life decision and probably way more important
Then going to the grocery store later
and like
today.
getting the house painted and like
Yeah, it
all
doesn't
those
belong on
things.
the
And
same list.
yeah, like, and I mean, and going to the doctor is important. She should go for her
Sure.
annual. Like, obviously, we're both proponents of that. But
Big proponents of preventive health. Yes.
yes, but I was floored, right?
Yeah.
And I said, we need to like figure out how we can strip away all that other stuff so you can make that decision around whether you're going to leave your spouse or not, go into couples whatever that
Right.
is. And at
Right.
that point, I didn't know if they were already in couples counseling.
Right. Right.
And so a lot of when I'm working with a client at the beginning is I'm trying to understand what their list of things is and
Yep.
helping them like kind of put things into buckets in terms of like, okay, this is core, like you got to figure this out.
Yep.
This is like semi important. And then this is like, okay, yeah, these are nice to haves. And it's getting people to understand nice to have. So my text on Sunday to all my clients is, what are your goals for the week?
Yep.
And 95% of the time, I'm slimming the goals down.
Right.
Like, I'm getting back to
Yep.
them, and I'm like, "Okay, this is a great list. We have too many things on here right now."
Mhm.
Or, "This is too big of a goal. We need to, like, slim it down." And
Mhm.
what I try to get people to understand so if Jillian, if you have a goal for this if you're, like, giving me your goals, I'll ask you right now, Friday at 5 o'clock, if you had 2 things that you were excited about that you got done, what would they be?
You're right.
Right? So, do
Yep.
you have 2 that like, if I asked you right now in front of
Mm.
our
Oh,
esteemed group
sure.
of people.
So I just got this fun list. So they're recording the audio book for my book, and I am not reading it, which is totally fine. But the book is full of technical language, and so I just got a list of about 75 to 100 terms that I need to record pronunciations for to make sure that they're correctly pronounced. So I'd like to have that done. Um, and my editor at The Savvy Patient is going to be away for an extended weekend that extends into next week. And so I want to make sure that she has the article for early next week that she needs to edit before she leaves in her hands so that she can do that. So those would be the two big rocks on my professional to-do lists that have to get done this week.
So what if we were just playing a little role playing just for the benefit
Sure.
of our audience, right?
Yeah,
So 75, that sounds like a lot,
it
right?
is. They're
So
they're not difficult for me, even though
mhm,
they're technical
mhm,
words, but
mhm.
it won't be a hard task. It might not be the most engaging task.
Yeah, it doesn't sound super engaging to me, but I can
My
understand
favorite
the
was all the names that they asked me to pronounce. I thought
oh
that was
gosh,
fun. So, like, like, names of people that they asked me
right,
to pronounce. So that was, I was
right.
amused by the list, but I do not think the task is going to be very interesting.
So the thing is getting people to kind of think about like, "Oh, I wanna do this, I wanna do this, I wanna do this, and I wanna do this." And it's getting people to kinda just, like, slim it down and saying, like, "Okay." And so would you assign like, realistically, what's the
Mhm.
likelihood that you'll be able to get both of those done by Friday at 5 o'clock?
100%.
Okay, so you're putting yourself in a position to be successful.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was a period of time in your life where you did not put yourself in a position to be successful
Like last
with your
week,
goal setting.
maybe.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
No, I mean, I think sometimes there are a lot of tasks and a lot of inputs coming at us. And I mean, I personally at the moment am finding that the number of emails I have been getting has gone up exponentially in the last couple of months. Um, and managing that input is distracting to me. And it does sometimes distract me from doing things like just sitting down and writing an article because I'm tempted to like click in and respond to people about things. So,
I got
um,
something for you.
yeah,
I got
close
something.
it.
Well, no, well, you could time box it, but
Yeah,
what I do myself and I tell my clients to do is that if you know you delete an email every day, stop.
yeah.
Instead of just deleting the email, unsubscribe.
Oh,
And
yes.
yes, that takes 10 times longer, but set a goal for yourself
Yep,
where you're like, I am going to unsubscribe from
yep,
5 emails a day.
yep.
And I will tell you, it helps.
No, it does. It does.
I went on a tear, like, I think, like, it happened around July 4th, and I was like, "This is, like, ridiculous."
Yeah,
And I just set a goal. I'm like, "If I delete this, that" no, because doing the mass delete takes no time.
right.
Doing Going into an individual email,
Yep,
clicking on it, scrolling down to find the unsubscribe,
yep,
clicking unsubscribe, then confirm that you unsubscribe, and
yep.
then getting out takes at least 10 times longer.
It
So
does.
I get that. But what I would say to anybody out here who is dealing with email overwhelm
Mhm.
is think more about, like, just be honest. Are you ever going to look at that email? Are you ever
Yeah,
going to look at it? Like, why do you want this email to continue coming in?
right.
Right?
Yes.
If you're not going to read it, what's the point?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Reduce the input.
Yeah, yeah, just reduce that. I mean, I have a whole bunch of other email. We could do a whole
Yeah.
show on like email management and stuff.
Yeah, maybe another time we'll have to do that. I do think that part of what distracts us all, and not just women with ADHD and not just women in perimenopause, but kind of everyone, is that we have so many inputs. And sometimes we have inputs that we don't even realize that we have, but we all have not just inboxes, but texts and messaging systems and social media
Yeah,
messages. And there's so many ways that people can reach out to us, Teams messages. Like there's just a million different ways, Slack,
yeah.
that
Oh, Slack
that
and Teams are the
things
worst.
come at us. Yeah.
Slack
um,
and Teams are the absolute worst.
well, because they make everything feel super important because you like get a notice, a notification, and it's immediate and it feels like you need to respond to it sort of super
Yeah,
immediately. So, and it really is so distracting. So,
yeah, the problem with Slack and Teams, and even you can even say with texts
yeah,
and emails, is that like a meeting invite comes in and almost everybody I know like reflexively accepts it. They don't stop. They don't think.
Yeah.
They just accept it. And then before you know it, your calendar
It's
is
so full.
and your calendar is driving you and you are not driving your calendar.
Right.
And there is a very
Right.
big difference.
Yeah.
And I would say that because we are in this like, like get the phone
Yep.
and respond. I try and get people to just say like, I want you to wait 5 seconds. Something
Yeah.
comes in. Let's try the 5-second rule for a day, which seems like an
Yeah.
eternity for a lot of people, given all the noise that comes in, to your point.
Yeah.
But let's just try holding up a response for 5 seconds. Is the world going to come to an end if you wait 5 seconds to respond?
Yeah. Yeah.
Unlikely, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Think, is this something that like I am uniquely qualified to solve?
Right.
Right? And if
Yeah.
I am not uniquely qualified to solve, then why am I involved?
Yeah.
And is it
Yeah.
also my priority now? Does this
Yeah.
have to be my priority? So
Yeah.
my mom took a fall last week. She has
Mhm.
Parkinson's. This is a thing,
Yeah.
right? So now she's in inpatient rehab. So this is important. Now, it's important, but how I have to juggle my calendar, right?
Mhm.
That becomes a different thing. And in
Yeah.
terms of what is very important right now versus emergent and everything else,
Yeah.
you have to make those calls. And even
Yeah.
like something related to this situation with my mom, not everything is urgent right now.
And not everything is something that's a problem that you specifically need to
Exactly.
solve. There are professionals on the case.
Exactly. And so the thing is that there are services that I am going to be looking into to kind of
Right.
figure out if my parents need to relocate.
Right.
Like, I don't have to do all this legwork. I have a sister in New York who we are
Yep.
tag teaming on this stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
My dad is there. There are certain things he can do. But
Right.
am I quarterbacking a lot of this? Yes, I happen to be the one who was quarterbacking a lot of it for a variety of reasons, which is
Sure.
fine, right? But you have to know who you can deputize.
Yep.
So my dad last night on the phone with him, like, you have to get me one document.
Yeah.
I just need one document. That's all I need. I don't have to fly there to get it. I'm like, I just need you to get me this one document, and I need you to take a picture of it on your phone and
Yep.
send it to me. That
Yep.
is it.
Yeah.
And it's just figuring out where you can delegate or deputize, right?
Mhm.
Someone, and what you have to save your energy for. So I obviously have to save my energy for when I'm talking to the doctors later to
Right.
find out what the plan is going to be. I have to
Right.
be 100% locked in, and I have to somehow optimize my brain for that
Right.
discussion. Everything else
Right.
is low stakes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to shift gears just a little bit. There's been lots of conversation in the last year or so about workplace best practices and what employers can do to support women during perimenopause. And I wanted to ask you if you could think of it, what is one thing that you think, and then I'll give my thoughts as well, but what is one thing that you think that employers could do that would better support women during perimenopause and perhaps, specifically women who struggle with attention during perimenopause? What is one thing employers could do that would help women to function better in the workplace?
I
Like a
think
policy or a
I think you touched upon it earlier. I think it's the Slack and Teams thing.
yeah,
And the reason why I say that is because everything is urgent, so nothing is urgent. That's what
right.
Slack and Teams have created.
Yeah.
And the thing is that when you are constantly getting dinged, so maybe you're not on Slack and Teams, right?
Hmm.
But it's still, whether you're getting emails or texts, it's precluding you, as you said, to do your deep work. And
Yeah.
what your subscribers pay for is your deep work on
Right.
what goes into the savvy short,
Yeah.
right? The savvy short might be 4 sentences, but there's a lot of work that goes into
Yeah.
crafting what those 4 sentences are, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is the value that you provide your subscribers. And
Right.
so when you throw in a Slack in a Teams environment and create this environment that everybody has to be always on,
Mm-hmm.
that decreases productivity, which means the workday is longer. And
Yeah.
with the workday being longer, that means there is less time for personal stuff, including self
Yep.
care,
Yep.
right? Including just downtime, including taking care of
Sleep.
sleep, personal, personal errands, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
by not allowing people to say, check Slack, say 2 to 3 times a day at specific times,
Right.
right?
We do
Versus
still have this thing called the telephone where you can pick up and call someone if something is truly emergent.
stop. Yeah, we're bringing it back. We're bringing it back. Next, we're gonna be talking about shopping malls and everything else. Last week,
Right.
I was talking to a group of people about camping out for concert tickets outside of the mall.
All right,
Uh,
exactly, exactly. We'll go retro. No, I think that's a great observation. I think kind of going along with that, when I think about this, one of the things that I think would be incredibly helpful is flexible work timing. I
yeah,
think, everybody's energy so everybody's a little different as far as when they're at their most productive and when they have those times when I mean you can want to focus all you want and you can create the optimal situation, but there will be times of day where you are it is not the time for a specific person to do deep work.
yeah,
um and I think allowing women to work at the times that work for them. I mean, obviously, there are things you have to do synchronously with others, meetings, that kind of thing. But it doesn't matter if you get the report done by Friday. It doesn't matter whether you get the report done on Tuesday at 10 a.m. or on Wednesday at 8 p.m., whatever time is the time that works best in
I
your
agree.
brain.
I think the thing is that you have to pick and choose, and that's what a lot of what I do in terms of like when I talked
Hmm.
about earlier, like playing Tetris with your calendar,
Yep.
is understanding what are the immovable blocks. So some places that I've
Yeah.
worked at, they had like what they called core working hours.
Yep.
And the core working hours, and this was a US company.
Yep.
So it was basically between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. Those were
Yep.
like the core working hours where it was like everybody needed to
Yep.
be like online, ready to go. Like
Sure.
in my last corporate job, I didn't take any meetings on the West Coast between the hours of 7 a.m. and 11 a.m. because it was a global team. And that's when we
Yeah.
had global meetings. And everybody
Right.
knew that the only meetings I was taking at that point, unless the sky was falling, like we were
Right.
dealing with some outage or something, and then it was
Right.
generally a global meeting anyway, um, between 7 and 11 a.m. Now,
Yep.
what made that challenging was if I had to be in the office, that's obviously commuting time. And
Sure.
so then what I was trying to do was pick a call that I could commute during where I didn't have to be fully like I wasn't like a
Right?
main participant and I was just a listener,
Yep. Yep.
right?
Yep.
And so that became challenging because I am a proponent of being in the office because
Yeah.
you do learn a lot side by side. I mean, imagine becoming a doctor and learning everything remotely as
Yeah, no,
opposed
that
to
wouldn't work.
it wouldn't work. And I think it's the same in almost every other occupation, but I do think that flexibility is a big thing. But I think
Yeah.
that but truly it's around the always connected, always on, and always responsive thing.
Right.
That is what's problematic, and I
Yeah.
think that cultures that are able to take a step back and kinda say, "Okay, here are the 5 hours of the workday everybody needs to be tethered to blah," but
Yeah.
also having that understanding that you are giving up deep work in that
Yes.
5-hour period between 10
Yep.
and 3. Like,
Yep.
that's the other part of this equation is,
So
like, you
then,
have
right, if you're a morning person, you're trying to do your deep work between 8 and 10, and
Right.
if you're an evening person, you're doing it in the, like, 3 and beyond hours, and knowing that
Yeah, or you're doing carpool pickup between 3 and 6, right?
And then
Like, you're gonna
you're dialing it out, and then you're doing a second shift in the evening. Yes.
Yeah. I worked with plenty of people, who they, were Uber drivers essentially
Yep.
for their kids between, like,
Yes.
4 and 7, and they would have
Yeah.
dinner and do the homework, and then they'd log on at 9:30 at night, and,
Yeah.
look, I'm not gonna sit there and, like, judge people, in terms of, like, the sleep and whatever. Everyone's gotta do what works for them, right? But the thing is that it's making su
You just have to have the time to do the deep work regardless of when you find the time. Like,
you have to
it
have the
has to get
time.
done.
You have to find the time to do the deep work, and you have to find the time to take care of yourself, right?
Yes.
So if you
Absolutely.
know so if you know that, like, you're on calls, like, on the West Coast, it's the evening if we have to be on the call with, like, India or,
Yep. Yep.
Asia or anything like that, it may be that, like, you know what? You're offline working out between 4 and 5,
Yep.
right? That might be what you're doing, and
Yeah.
the other thing that I'll say to anybody here is that you have to set the boundary. Your
Yes.
boss is not gonna say, "You know what, Jillian? You
Yeah.
should take off between 4 and 5 to exercise because
Right.
you're on calls from blah, blah,
Yep.
blah, blah." Like, your boss,
Yep.
it's not your boss's responsibility.
No, no, definitely not. Definitely not.
Like,
I think that's a great. I think boundaries are a great
right.
place to kind of land us here because so much of this is about setting boundaries for ourselves, setting boundaries for others. And that is great.
So I
Um,
think if there's just one thing I just wanna add to that, I know we're gonna have
yeah.
to wrap up
Yeah.
soon, is that
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot
We
of
got to
times
wrap up, but I'd love to hear one takeaway.
when I've
Yeah.
worked with
What's you sorry, finish your thought.
yeah, what when I start working with people, I tell them they are going to be uncomfortable. Because habit change is uncomfortable. Changing how
Yeah.
you go about your day is going to be uncomfortable. I don't promise quick fixes. I am not a quick
Yeah.
fix person. I'm
Yeah.
not into the gimmicks. So the thing is that for anyone who is listening to this, you have to be willing to get uncomfortable. You're going to have to get
Yeah.
comfortable with being uncomfortable, which sounds all hokey and everything else, but it's the truth. It's the
Yeah.
absolute truth.
Yeah. I think that's a great place to land us. This has been a fantastic conversation. I know we're going to be having more conversations about perimenopause in the workplace because there's a lot happening in this space right now, and I think it's really interesting. But thank you so much, Jill, for joining me today. And let people know where they can find you.
So, first of all, Jillian, before they kick us out, thank you for having me on the show. You could find me at Just Go Long on Instagram. So it's the word Just Go Long. I'll type it in the chat here.
Yep.
I also have my own Substack,
Yep.
golong.substack.com, and you can find me there. And if you reach out to me on Substack or DM me on Instagram, you can find me there. You can find me on LinkedIn. And then there's my
Great.
website, golong.me. So
Amazing.
reach out.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. I'm Dr. Jillian Goddard. I'm the author of the Savvy Patient Substack, and I'm going to be back in 2 weeks with our regular Ask Me Anything for the month. And then I'm already lining up a guest for next month, and I think it's going to be another really great conversation. So thanks again, Jill, so much for joining me today. And I hope everybody has a great rest of your day.